You know, I could be playing any other turn-based RPG right now. Hell, on Game Pass, I could be playing the game that inspired this one, Persona 5 Royale. They've even got Persona 4 Golden. They've even got Persona 3 Portable. And yet, here I am, playing this. Honkai Star Rail. Hi guys, welcome back to a brand new video, and today, of course, we're talking about Honkai Star Rail. This is going to be a in-depth look review. I've been playing this game for, well, since it's launched. I'm already at Trailblazer level 41, I don't know, my characters are level 60, so I do have some experience with this game. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's start off with the visuals. Now, if you played Genshin Impact, then you definitely recognize this art style. Now, it has more of a sci-fi aesthetic because, you know, it's based in the Honkai universe, multiverse. I haven't played enough of Honkai Third Impact to fully understand the lore behind it and how Honkai Star Rail is connected to it, but you can tell that, aside from some of the characters, that there is a similar feel to it, and the graphics are as good as Genshin Impact. Probably what helps is it's not as open world. It's separated into like little areas. Some of the areas are actually pretty big, but you know, little map areas where it's not as demanding on your mobile. I've been playing the PC port. The graphics look fine. It's running smoothly. It's running smoothly. Animations are fine. Flashy. Stylized, anime-esque. What more could you want? There was no visual hiccups. I didn't notice any glitches or any glaring defaults. Characters move fine. Maybe some of the sharp turn animations are a bit iffy, but overall, since it's a turn-based game, like, there isn't really much need for like in-depth, like, fluid combat like you do in Genshin Impact. You have more time to work on the animations, and you know, some of them are more visually stunning when they're doing their limit breaks, but overall it looks good, it runs good. Music is good, suits the mood of the game, except for this one scene when you get on the train for the first time, and I was a bit like, well, this music is a bit more somber than I was expecting. This is like the start of the journey, like they're going off into the deep unknown, and it's exciting and it's exhilarating, and one of the characters is really excited, but no, it's just very moody. But you know, you can go listen to the whole entire soundtrack or the ones you've unlocked on the jukebox on the Express. But yeah, music's fine, visuals, animations, all that stuff is good. Also, while we're talking about all the visuals and audios and stuff, you know, we probably should talk about the character design. There's a reason why we're playing this game, so, you know, character design is 10 out of 10. Now, let's get into the story. Now, like I said previously, I don't fully understand how this is connected to Honkai Third Impact. Maybe later on we'll get some more understanding on how these characters are reincarnated, and because some of the characters in this are dead in Third Impact, but then Impact has, like, Elseworld stories within its game and the multiverse. Let's not worry about it. Story is basic as it gets. You were created and you don't really know your past. All you know is that this organization may be responsible for you, and you're some sort of destroying Stellaron thing, but you're now just going around and stopping Stellarons because Stellarons are not great and they impact different planets and organizations. So it's like a globe-trotting adventure. The first area, you're on a spaceship, you've just woken up, and you're getting introduced to these characters and the mechanics and the story beats. So pretty much the story is, you go to a new location, there's a Stellaron problem, you're there to fix it. Next area, there's a Stellaron problem, you're there to fix it. A few twists and turns. Turns out some people stab you in the back, and you can see it coming from a mile away. You don't have to look too deep at the moment on all the backstory and all the history. There's a bunch of gods, and apparently you're going to become a god killer or not. I don't know. I'm at a point where there's no more story, so I don't know what's happening. Bunch of side quests as well, and there's a load of like text logs and lore logs that can build up all these different worlds, and you get a history of each world. Or, well, so far it's been a world and 2 space stations, one super massive, which is basically a world, but overall, this, you know, the story isn't, oh my god, mind-blowing. You know, you're not looking at super in-depth characters. Your character's more of a blank slate, sort of like Persona, where you're allowed to project yourself into it, but not too much, because you only get like a few options of dialogue, and that's about it. But you get all the standard anime archetypes in here. You know, it's fine. I just wish they leave the mascot alone. I didn't need another. Just I don't like the train conductor. Why do we have to have an annoying small anime mascot? Why? As I mentioned at the beginning when I was talking about the visuals, this game doesn't have like the massive errors you do in Genshin Impact. The maps do get bigger and bigger as you go along, and there's a lot more to explore. I guess this is ideal because phones were struggling to play Genshin Impact. I mean, Genshin Impact is a good benchmark to test out the phone's gaming capabilities, and by doing like this, it's less demanding. Map design is fine. It gets more complicated as you go along. Some puzzles to go along with it. Some routes you have to take, and then if you do flick a certain switch, you're no longer allowed to go back to that route, but then you have to flick another switch and then you can go back. It does feel very linear at times. There's some hidden off areas where you can find treasure chests, and there's some puzzles where you can get treasure chests, and then there's some bosses where you can get treasure chests. Overall, it's fine. The map design is fine. Each world has its own map, and then you also have an overall map to go to those each worlds. Navigation through these maps is pretty easy, and the load times through these maps are pretty easy. Loading into a room, even if it's the same room, load times are quite quick and snappy. I guess there isn't too much to render for each of these worlds, whereas in Genshin Impact, because it's a massive world, there's a lot more to load in and render in. So draw distances are fine. I haven't really noticed any slowdowns, so I kind of like the idea that the map's being smaller and more confined. Because you're entering a turn-based battle, you're cutting into another scenes. There's not really much point of having like a massive open world, I guess. So let's talk about quests. You've got a couple of different types of quests. You have your main quest, which is yellow. You have your daily quest, which is green. You have your side quest, which is blue. And then you have character quests, which are purple. Character quests build up a rapport with a character so they can eventually come aboard your ship. Now, like I mentioned at the very start, this game was inspired by Persona. And you know, in those types of games, you form social bonds with characters, and by forming social bonds, they are able to do better in battle. In this game, doesn't have any of that. You just got to do your classic, I guess, gacha gaming. I mean, you have to go find a whole bunch of items and resources to level up your characters. Yes, you can do a bit more lore digging with them, but there are only bonuses that they just appear on your ship, and you get a whole bunch of jades, which you can use to get more pulls. So character quests are just extra quests. Side quests are, well, side quests just get some experience. Each world has their own currency, and you can only spend that currency on that world. By spending more currency on that world, you can unlock better items. So it is a good idea to do the side quest as well. Like I mentioned, there's also a daily quest that only just gives you money, and it's mainly for your daily login bonuses. And yellow quests are main quest. A lot of it just involves go to point B, or collect item, collect another item, go back to point A, go to point B. It's not as bad as most MMOs where it's like kill 20 things, but there are bits where you're just like running around and going back and forth, especially the daily quest. It's usually go to point B. Okay, now go back to point A. Alright, now you're done. Some quests obviously have a boss battle. Obviously, there's some elite troops as well, but overall, there isn't too much to the questing system. Besides quests, you also have simulations. There's sort of like the rogue-like element of the game. Each time you go in, you can get different buffs, different stat bonuses as you go along, unlock different perks for completing the simulation, and the simulation give you bonuses. You only, well, there's a bonus reward system every week for the simulation. Also, there are rewards within the simulation, but you have to spend Trailblazer points, all these weird Relic coins, which they mainly give you Trailblazer EXP and some good relics. So yeah, I think this is where a lot of times you're going to be replaying it. It is the roguelike. You might get better stats, better bonus points, not bonus points, better bonuses that, allow your characters to do more damage, act faster. Also in these simulations, you're allowed to summon bosses at a certain point that do massive damage. But overall, like, the simulation is basically, hey, run this back, maybe you'll get something good out of it. You also have memories, which are like little challenges. The better you do at the challenge, the more you higher the star rating. The max is 3 stars. You have to complete these certain requirements. It's usually complete the boss within a certain amount of rounds and don't have more than one person die. You do that, 3 stars. You unlock a whole bunch of extra stuff. It's just something to do, but a lot of these challenges are basically like, hey, you need to level up a lot of your party members. And then it gets to, hey, you need to have about 8 characters all leveled up in order to do this, so it does get quite grindy. Hi, my mic arm collapsed. Also, there is dispatch. You basically send 2 units off. You wait 4 hours and you get some of the materials that you could grind for, but you could get free. And if your characters have affinity for searching that kind of material, you might get 4. An hour a material. Yeah, dispatching's great. And finally, you have your Calyx, you've got your Stagnant Shadow, Caravan of Corrosion, Echoes of War. Basically, this is where you're going to be grinding out items and materials in order to level up your characters, unlock new skills and abilities. We'll get more into that on the character section, but basically, in order to do this, you require Trailblazer power. It refreshes every so often. Yes, it's that mobile mechanic where you're not allowed to do missions or play the game until a certain amount of time. But don't worry, main missions, side missions, character missions, daily missions, you can do that whenever. It doesn't require any power. But these Calyxes, Stagnant Shadows, Caravan Corrosions, Echoes of War, the stuff you're going to need to do grinding a lot. Yes, it obviously requires power. Each one at minimum costs 10 power to do a battle. Some of them cost 30, some of them even 40. You can even use the power for rewards in the simulated universe, like I mentioned before. And you can burn an item in order to get more Trailblazer power, or you can use your Jades to also translate into power. This is the thing you're going to be spending most of your time on. Now, as you can gather, there's basically 2 modes of gameplay. There is walking around section and the turn-based combat. The open round section involves talking to NPCs, buying items, and doing some puzzles. Puzzles vary depending on the world you're in. They're meant to fit the theme of that world. For example, in the current world I'm in, there's a puzzle where you have to rotate dials in order to call a ship over. Or you have to rotate a cube and match the cube face to the faces on the outer cube. And just a pro tip, there's often a simple solution to these puzzles that only takes like 1 or 2 movements and then you're done. So try and not overthink it, and there is a very quick way to solve these puzzles. Even if it looks super complicated, it's usually move 2 things and you're done. Okay, let's talk about the combat, because that's what you're going to be doing most of the time. Now, before I get in, yes, you can auto-battle most battles, except for boss battles and certain key battles. You can just auto-battle your way. I don't often recommend this because the auto-battler just tends to use whatever is available to it and doesn't really think too much about elemental statuses or breaking. It's there, but only use it for grinding and you're overpowered or over-leveled and you're not too worried about character battling. But if you're evenly matched, it's probably a good idea to just use your brain. Like I mentioned, it's turn-based, so your characters take a turn, or the enemy takes a turn. Now in this case, everybody has their own speed stats, including you and the enemy, so it's not like your party takes a turn and then the enemy takes a turn. It's depending on the character. If an enemy's faster than you, then it might go first, or if your character's faster than the enemy, then it might go first, or it might go enemy, your character, enemy, enemy, enemy. Now before you begin the battle, you can hit the enemy And if you hit it with a character with a cert that's strong against that enemy, it does a weakness, and some of the enemies may have their break meter gone. Now there's a white bar above every single enemy, and that's kind of like its poise, I guess you could say, if you're like a Dark Souls fan. You break it, the enemy becomes weaker and can take more damage, and they also lose a bit of their turn order, but sometimes the enemy's so fast that it doesn't really matter and they can completely recover their pose. But it's a good idea to break that, because then they can take more damage, and enemies have elemental resistances and weaknesses, and sometimes you're going to have a character who is not as strong against certain enemies and is, you know, going to do hardly any damage, and they might be a top damage dealer, so you want to break the enemy so they can do maximum damage to it. Now, your characters, I haven't really noticed if they have an elemental weakness. Characters don't tend to break, so it's not like Persona where your character has an alignment, and if the enemy uses an ability on you, then your character then loses a turn. There's nothing that complicated. It's essentially you can just do damage, and if you do the right elemental damage, you can break their stamina bar or poise bar, whatever you want to call it, and if you do, then they become more valuable. There's also like debuffs and buffs, status effects like poison or more commonly burn. There's also other stuff like freeze. If you freeze the enemy, they might, when it's their turn, they might not be able to attack because they have to recover. All this stuff to go in, it's not that complicated. Basically what you want to do is break them so you can do more damage. Bosses have powerful attacks that usually target one or two of your party members, and if you manage to break them before they pull off that attack, they don't do that powerful attack, which is usually a lot of damage. So you want to break. Each character has a basic attack and a special attack and an ultimate attack. You can only use the ultimate attack when the bar is full, and you can see a little circular ball next to their name, and as you battle and do certain requirements like break an enemy, that bar fills, and once you do that, you can unleash an ultimate attack. Ultimate attacks take priority over everything, so you can break an enemy, fill that bar up, and then go straight to an ultimate attack before it's even the enemy turn, or interrupt an enemy's turn. Some bosses, or actually the majority of bosses I've found have an extra turn. They're allowed to attack twice, but if you have an ultimate attack ready, you're able to attack mid their attack, which is often great. Like I said before, you have a basic attack and a special attack. Now, you're only allowed to use a special attack if you have enough points. You're allowed a maximum of 5 points. If you just do a basic attack, you gain a point, but if you use your special attack, you lose a point. And characters have their attacks do different stuff. So for example, one person might have a basic attack, but it also weakens their defense. Their special attack might remove a buff on the enemy. Some characters have shields, which grant do shields on everyone. Some characters have an AoE attack and have a single attack. There's different stuff. Again, there's elemental weaknesses, so you're constantly having to switch out your party for certain bosses, because make your life a lot easier. So you want to make sure that you have all your elements covered. Each character only has one element, except for the main character, who is eventually probably going to unlock even more elements. They can switch their affinity and make sure they're at decent levels. So you might have one that has fire, one has ice, and one that has wind. You might want to make sure they're all fairly high level. There's a lot of characters, so a lot of them also have a lot of overlap. So I have like 4 ice characters at this point, so I've only tended to focus on one. But some ice characters might have an AoE attack, whereas others only have a single attack, and they might be focused on the debuffing and buffing. But overall, turn-based combat is fine. There's a little bit of strategy, there's a little bit of thinking involved, but after a while, when you're just grinding, you're going to hit the auto battle. Also, before I forget, on the point of battles, you can't heal during battles, so characters that can heal become very valuable. Now, luckily, during the main game, you do get access to Natasha. She is just the free character you're going to get, so you might want to use her a lot. It's not necessary. A lot of the time, you're just going to be whacking the enemy and trying to kill them before they kill you. But if you are struggling, you know, spend some time with Natasha. For some reason, whenever I tried to pull, I kept getting her, so I have her pretty good stats. There is also another healer that's obviously better, but you know, don't worry, there's a free healer. But yeah, if you're wondering why you can't heal during battles, it's because you need a certain character. Let's talk about leveling. So you have your main level, your Trailblazer level. This is sort of your account level. You level this up by doing main missions, story missions, character missions, side missions, but not daily missions. Daily missions only gives you money. You can also level this up by spending Trailblazer power on the Echoes of War, the Calyxes. You can also level up your Trailblazer level by doing simulations, but only for the reward bits where you get the relics. You also can gain Trailblazer EXP by completing the daily missions as well. What you get for leveling up your Trailblazer level? Well, you get rewards every time you level up by speaking to this guy right here. And occasionally you'll be granted access to new stuff like Echoes of War and your Equilibrium level. Equilibrium level allows you to do certain actions like ascend your character even higher. It also makes the enemies in the area stronger. Once you reach a certain Trailblazer level, you are then challenged to fight an enemy. Once you beat that enemy, you're allowed to ascend higher. You're allowed to up the difficulty for those areas. So the higher your Equilibrium level, the higher the enemies are. And the higher the enemies are, the more rare the materials will drop. And you are going to need higher materials because you're going to need a lot of them to level up your character's, well, level and abilities. Let's talk about leveling up your character. Now, your character has a base level they can level up by you leveling up their EXP by battling, or what you're going to be mainly doing is using this certain item that boosts up their level. After 20 levels, you need to ascend, which means you need to get certain items or materials to ascend them. There's also ascension rewards, so at certain ascension points, the character can give you like bonus tickets for pulling. We'll get more into that later. But as you go along, certain ascension levels are locked behind your Equilibrium level. So again, that's probably why you want to focus on getting that Equilibrium level up. But in order to do that, you need to level up your Trailblazer level. It all connects. It's all connected. Next up is Lycones. Lycones can boost up basic stats, but they also give you a bonus, and there's also affinities, so you can't equip certain Lycones to certain characters. It depends on their affinity. I know it gets super complicated. You also level up Lycones like you would your character by ascending them after a certain amount of levels, and then having to unlock certain Equilibrium levels to unlock it even further. Next up, you have Traces. Now, Traces are what's going to boost your stats. Maybe boost up certain attacks. You can unlock new stat boosts as well, but this is where you're going to be like trying to grind out certain materials, and then you have to do certain boss battles again to unlock certain other materials, and also some of them are locked behind Equilibrium levels, so you can only unlock a certain amount, and then you have to spend ages grinding up your Trailblazer level just so you can unlock your Equilibrium level. Next up is Relics. You can level up Relics by using other Relics. Relics have different rarities. The rarer the Relic, the higher the level. Relics also have set bonuses, so if you have the same set of Relics, then you get better buffs. Also, Relics do different stuff, so you want to pay attention to make sure that this Relic might boost your HP, it might boost your attack. Later on, you unlock even more Relic slots, so you can get a total of 6 Relics on your character. And some of this might boost your damage, it might boost your healing, it might boost your elemental damage as well. That's great. And finally, you have Eidolons. Basically, this falls back to the Gacha mechanic. If you pull a character a certain amount of times, you don't get the same character. What you get is like this orb or Eidolon. And the more you pull of them, the more bonuses they get. Some can be very good. Obviously, the more you get of one character, the more they're going to be able to do, the better their stats, to a point where they just become god tier. For the main character, you can actually buy these Eidolons in the shop or unlock them, so that's good. The main character is also the only one who can actually switch to a different element, but then again, they have to switch their Lycone because the Lycone is tied to the element, and if once they switch their element, you have to re-equip their Lycone. Also, you have to level up their traces as well. their traces becomes a completely new set. So, you know, you can switch your character's element, but you're also going to have to completely grind out that version. Luckily, your level stays the same, and the relics you equip don't need to change. Of course, this is a mobile game, so let's talk about the gacha. So you use these tickets in order to pull new characters, but you don't always pull characters. You actually spend most of your time getting Lycones. Yes, that's how you're going to get a lot of your Lycones, is by pulling. Certain characters are a lot rarer, so, you know, you're just going to be constantly pulling, and certain characters in certain banners. You know the drill by now. You've seen this a million times. Just keep pulling, and hopefully you get your character. And like I said, if you get pulled multiple of the same character, well, then they're just converted into a little orb that you can upgrade their Eidolon level. So, you really want a super strong Seele. Get ready to pull a lot. Of course, it's modern day gaming, so the game has a battle pass. There's a free version and a premium version. You can see both versions at the same time. Well, hey, by doing daily stuff, spending a certain amount of Trailblazer points, doing a daily quest, beating enemies in a certain way, you're going to unlock the battle pass. And then of course there's the premium side that goes, hey, look at all this good stuff you can get. Look at all this good stuff. Battle Pass costs $9.99. You can obviously pay for more to unlock more levels. I am free to play, and I have not needed any of this stuff. So final thoughts. Well, trying to max out a character, you're going to be spending a lot of time grinding. And then once you've grinded your character max and you want to unlock more stuff, you have to grind even more. You're going to be spending so much time. I mean, so much time doing the simulated universes, doing all the calyxes, stagnant shadows, caravan of corrosions, echoes of war. Also, echoes of war, you can only do it 3 times a week, and if you want to get your full party maxed out and good stuff, you're going to realize you're going to have to prioritize certain characters, because you need so much of this stuff. You need so much. There's so much grind. There's so much grinding. Also, at the time of recording, I've done all the side missions and character missions and main missions. So it's literally just a grind fest right now. And again, the stuff you're going to be grinding costs points, Trailblazer power, and you only have a limited amount. And then it also slowly recharges, so you have to use a certain item, or you can spend the premium currency, the jades, which you can also use to pull in order to get more points. You've seen this 1,000 times. You've seen this with Genshin Impact. If you played Genshin Impact, you pretty much know how the system works. It's just Genshin Impact, but turn-based. And yeah, I can't stop. I just can't stop. Send help. Thanks for watching. Please try and save your mortal soul at all costs, but if you've already fallen for the gacha trap, welcome. Don't worry, you don't need to put money into this, but considering this game's already made 20 million in its first week, I don't know, it's probably made more, then you know it's already too late. Goodbye.
Morse. Marvelous. Together on the track. Let's go. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, red sus. Red sus, sus.